Hey everyone, it's Fate. Today I'm gonna go ahead and start us off with a classic, definitely not a book that came out in this century, or the last one, and barely even the one before that. So this is Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, a literal classic, basically the proposed first ever science fiction title, still kind of arguable, debatable at this point, and definitely a key piece of literature in terms of like gothic horror fiction, stuff like that. So, of course, this book is by Mary Shelley, but who narrated this audiobook? Because that's what we're doing. That would be a gentleman by the name of Tom Fria. Definitely not an audiobook narrator that I bumped into prior to this. This is specifically a version that you can find on the app Hoopla. I use Hoopla because my library actually has a setup with it, and I get 5 free audiobook title rentals every single month, and I absolutely use them. I try to use all of them every single month, in fact. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it a bit. I wanted to start by kind of explaining to you who Tom Fria is, a little something about maybe his audio narrative or narration career so far, what I've been able to find just by doing a quick little bit of research on it. So, according to his LinkedIn, Tom Fria is an audiobook narrator with over 15 years of experience. You can find him under the name Tom Fria or Thomas Fria. He has a LinkedIn, a website that I'll go ahead and put the link in the description, and he has a bunch of different resources like an Amazon or Audible, if you will, page lists all his titles, and a Hoopla page as well that lists a ton of titles that I could not find outside of Hoopla, but I didn't look very hard. So Tom Fria is an interesting fellow. He does not look as venerably aged as he sounds. He has a very strong, elder, masculine voice that does have enough range to where you can always tell the characters that he is reading apart from each other. He's very good with consistency. I will say the specific title that I'm going to link you to, the Mary Shelley's Frankenstein upload on Hoopla, narrated by Tom, is a bit wild. It seems like either his editor did him dirty, or perhaps there was a bit of just a sloppiness, a relaxed hand in putting together the audio file. So, throughout Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, it's supposed to be building tons of tension, playing on aspects such as dread. I'm trying to not get into the plot itself because that's not what I'm trying to do right now. But in Tom's narration, he is doing a good job of creating this almost scolding and withering and honestly like genuinely dreadful tension building narration. But then there will be little scenes. I'm not going to clip one, put it on here. He'll be narrating a sentence or even, God forbid, a piece of dialogue. And I learned something that I don't think you're supposed to learn as one of his audiobook listeners, but he has a sort of a quirk when he makes a mistake in a narration where he will just go or something like that. And I think it's for him to sift through his own audiobook files or maybe for his editor. But then it immediately sets up for a retake. So there will be something to the effect of, I entered into the room where Lucy laid, and I entered into the room where Lucy laid. It's very interesting. If you listen to the specific file that I linked, have fun with that. Otherwise, I will say that Tom's particular voice makes for a very interesting mental picture as a narrator. He has a very, like I said, a very elder and resonant voice that has a bit of a whistle to it, that kind of vocal characteristic of someone who's a more respectably aged individual. As a result, it's almost weird to think about because so many of the characters in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein are genuinely supposed to be like young individuals. I think you can count on like one hand the number of middle-aged or older individuals throughout the book. Now, that could just be my moronic media literacy, if you will. But it's an interesting sort of feeling when you have that to go on because of how potently elder and masculine Tom's voice sounds. You kind of forget at times. I forgot several times that I'm listening to a book about essentially a younger, sort of foolish, aristocratic young man and his young man from another aristocratic background best friend and the young ladies, etc. I keep thinking that everyone in this story is like way an elder to me. It's a wild ride. But aside from that, the audiobook intonation, the pronunciation of everything, the overall delivery of the text in the form of audio was really pleasant. Now, talking about the book itself, right? Talking about Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Spoiler warnings for this 207-year-old book at the time of recording. It is an absolute classic. I mean, given that it's from, I believe, the Regency era or the pre-Victorian era, the English is very flowery. It's very full of verbose, formal, and almost unheard of word choice, especially in the context of conversation. And you'll see that a lot where the diction of the characters themselves comes off as something akin to a textbook or an orator from a play from essentially the period, because, you know, they did really talk like that. So it's a little something to get used to if you haven't read too many books from the Regency, the Victorian period, or possibly late post-Renaissance. It's a style of writing and a style of speaking that can detract from the work itself if you're not used to parsing it. Now, all that being said, the book, aside from the diction, the word choices, and the sort of flowery language, as I love to call it, is full of a really amazing use of sympathetic storytelling. It's never pressed in your face that you're supposed to feel so sorry for Victor's creation, or Frankenstein's monster, whatever you want to call him. But throughout the text, I mean, you at first think you're supposed to feel really, really bad for Victor Frankenstein, but as more time goes on, you just kind of realize this is just a tragedy. I mean, everyone's having a really bad time here, and the creature is just a product of absolutely horrendous freaking neglect and carelessness. There's a lot of enjoyable delivery of, I guess you could call it, violence and gruesome activities. And all in all, I will say, there never feels like there's almost any part wasted on you. Nothing is fillery, nothing is just intermediary. The entire book, being that it is such a classic, is pretty difficult to put down, honestly. All things considered, I would say that if you wanted to go ahead and give this book a read, I would personally shop around and see if you can find a free audiobook by a narrator that suits your particular likes. However, I would not recommend against Tom Fria's. I felt like it was a good reading. All in all, I actually have gone ahead and checked out some other things by Tom, just out of sheer curiosity. Tom seems to really enjoy a completely different author who is strikingly different from Mary Shelley. This is a Wyoming rancher named John J. Law who has a lot of really strange, almost eccentric, Wild West short stories. I mean, these things as audiobooks play out in roughly an hour each, and they range from stories about mountain men to stories about the one-off exposés of bounty hunters, ruthlessness, all the way to Shandunka, which I'm gonna have to check out Shandunka and put that on the channel one day. Fucking Shandunka. Anyway, that's that. Hope you guys like it. Hope you guys love Frankenstein. And check it all out. Got links in the descripts. And that'll be it for now. Check in with you guys again later. Take care.